Hi everyone, today we'll be covering expenses in TenantCloud. We'll go over recording expenses, seeing the reports that those expenses are included on, reconciling those expenses, as well as recouping those expenses for our property managers and property management companies. First, we'll do an overview of the accounting section just as a refresher. So we'll go over to the left-hand menu and click on accounting, and we'll start with the transactions section. Here on the transaction section, you can see at the top, you'll have three widgets. You'll have your total outstanding, your total paid, and your total overdue. You can also break these down by income versus expense. At the top right, you'll have two sections. You'll have money in or money out. Money out will be your expenses. There is expense invoice as a choice, expense payment, which is a paid expense invoice, any recurring expenses, being able to bulk change invoices on TenantCloud, return a deposit, apply a deposit to an invoice, or owner distributions. Under money in, you'll have income invoice, income payment, which is a paid income invoice, recurring income, bulk changing those invoices on TenantCloud, making a deposit, making a credit, asking for an owner contribution, or recording a management fee. At the top of the transactions list, you can filter these transactions by date, client, which would be service pro, owner, or tenant, the property or unit, the category and subcategory, the amount, the transaction status, the accounting type, and then also our new feature, the accounting tags. On this transactions page, you can change the view to either an expanded view or a compact view. The next section down under accounting will be payments, and this will include partially and fully paid invoices. You can see here, you can also break this down by income versus expense and refunds. You'll have three widgets at the top for the paid income, paid expenses, and paid refunds. At the top right, you'll have those same money out and money in options. And then you can filter this payments page by date, property and units, client, which is the service pro, owner, or tenants, the reconciliation status, the amount, the category, the payment account, and the payout status. Under payments, we will take a look at balances. And this will break down any outstanding balances that your tenants have based on the time frame. You'll have 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 plus, and then all time. You can filter these balances by property, status, client, or lease status. Again, you'll have those same money in and money out options at the top right, and you can do the expanded or compact view. Under balances, we'll take a look at recurring. This will house all of your recurring expenses, invoices, anything set to be recurring. You can see here that you will have your rents listed here. As covered in another video, whenever you need to stop these recurring rents, you will not be able to do them from the recurring page, but you can post the next invoice here or clone. To end those recurring rents, you'll want to go to the tenant's profile under the leases tab and view that active lease, and then the lease transactions tab. Back to recurring, here you can do that same expanded or compact view. You can filter these by status on the recurring transaction, the date, property and units, the client, category and subcategory, or the accounting tags. You will again have those same money out and money in options at the top right. The next section under accounting is going to be management tools. This will show you two tabs, one for all of your open management fees and another for your owner distributions. For the management fees, you can filter this by date or by property and units, and this allows you to bulk manage those management fees. On the owner's distribution tab, you will see any outstanding owner distributions. You can also filter this by date, the owner, or the property. The last section under accounting is going to be reconciliation. We will cover this a little bit later in the video, where we will show you how to match those expenses from your TenantCloud account to the line item on your bank statement with the reconciliation feature. When we are ready to record an expense in our TenantCloud account, the first place we're going to want to go to is Contacts on the left-hand side and Service Pros. Here you'll want to add the company, vendor, contractor that you'll be paying, and you can do so by clicking Add Service Pro at the top right and filling out the information here. Once you hit Create, they will become a profile under your Service Pro contacts. As you can see here, I've added Amazon. If I view their profile, I can click Add Invoice at the top right to add that expense invoice. So since I bought a light fixture for one of my properties on Amazon, I'll come here and add this invoice under the Amazon Service Pro profile. So I'll look for categories and we'll select lighting. Now I actually paid this invoice in April, so I'm going to change the due date to April 22nd. I'll fill out the amount. And since I already paid this, I'm going to go ahead and mark as paid. The payer payee will fill itself out if you've created the invoice from the Service Pros profile. If you do it from transactions or any of the other pages under accounting, you will want to find that specific Service Pro in the payer payee list. I'll select my property that it was spent with. And then I can even add our new feature, the tags. So since this was part of my renovations that I'm doing this year, I'm going to also add my renovations tag. I'll go ahead and hit create. And since I put that it was paid, it's going to ask me how I paid it and what day I paid it on. So I'll go ahead and leave that for April 22nd. If you plan on using the reconciliation feature and you did pay it using the bank account that you have attached to your TenantCloud, you're going to want to select that from the list on payment account. I'll go ahead and put ACH as my method and hit confirm. Once that invoice is paid, I will be able to see that in my transactions under my expenses. If we scroll back to April, we can see here I have some Amazon invoices listed. The next step would be to reconcile this with our bank statement that we pulled over in the reconciliation feature. So we'll come over to the left-hand menu and click on reconciliation. As you can see here, I've already got my bank account connected. Something to note with the reconciliation feature, if you added your bank account the manual verification way where we sent a micro deposit and you put the code in or typed in the routing and account number manually, you will want to delete and re-add that instantly, which would be through your online banking login. This will be the only way that Stripe is able to bring in that bank statement over to your TenantCloud account. So I did add mine instantly, and you can see here that it shows my bank statement balance and then my balance in TenantCloud and the difference between the two, which is what we would want to be reconciling. If I click view on the 107 records that need to be reviewed, I can see I have 107 not matched and I haven't matched any yet. So since I added that Amazon invoice, I can find Amazon here and click match. So we will click match, and this will allow us to find that invoice in our TenantCloud account. Something to note with the matching process, the date range is pretty small that it defaults to. And since the payments can take a few days to process with income or expenses, you will want to expand that date range. So I will do from April 30th to May 31st. And you can see here my Amazon expense invoice that was recorded in TenantCloud does pop up. So I'll click that checkbox and do match. Now that I've matched that with the invoice in TenantCloud, it does show that it has been matched up there and that invoice has now been reconciled. We'll go through and find one more Amazon invoice and match that as well. So let's see. We've got an Amazon here. So we'll click match. And like I said, that date range is pretty small, so I'm going to expand that again and we'll do the whole month of April. And I can see my invoice for my garbage disposal. Again, check that checkbox and click match. Something to note when you are reconciling income invoices, we can find one as an example here. So as you can see, the deposit shown on my bank statement is $120, but I know that the invoices that made up that deposit are smaller amounts combined into one lump payment from my tenant. So if I click match, it's going to filter it just for that same matching amount. But since I know that the invoices she actually paid were combined and were smaller amounts, I will make the amount range the smallest amount that one of those invoices was. So we'll do 60 to 120. And then we will expand that date range again. As you can see here, since I widened that filter on the amounts, it does now pick up the two invoices that were both included on that one deposit in my bank statement. So I'll check the box next to both of those to link it to this one deposit in my bank statement. And now you can see that number is going up on the matched and going down on the not matched. This will also help you get that difference to zero. If you ever have anything that you have not recorded in TenantCloud, you can still click match. And if you know that the invoice is not there or you've searched and there's nothing showing up, you can create a payment from this page. And I would leave it a property expense. I can leave the date and the amount, and then I would just fill out the category and match it to the appropriate service pro and property. And now I'm able to match that to that invoice on my bank statement. Next, we'll take a look at the Service Pro under your contacts. So we'll go to contacts on the left-hand menu and then Service Pros, and we'll go ahead and view the profile for Amazon. From here, I would be able to see any outstanding expenses I have recorded that I have not paid to Amazon. And then there's a tab to the right for transactions, and this will show all of your invoices that you have with this Service Pro. There's also going to be a timeline feature at the top right under the clock icon where I can see exactly date and time payments were made and invoices were posted. You'll also have the add invoice feature, and then under actions you can edit, send connection, archive, and delete. With the send connection, this is for any service pros that you're working with that agree to be paid through TenantCloud. They are able to create a service pro account and they can do a free version or a paid version. They can still collect payments through TenantCloud with the free version, and they are able to skip the background check when they are signing up. They will, however, still need to verify their account and then add their bank account to collect those payments. For each Service Pro, you do also have the ability to create or generate a 1099 tax form. So that would be the 1099 NEC for service pros, and you can generate that for them. If we go back to the service pros profile, you do also have the ability to run a provider statement report. This will help you see what all you've spent with each service pro that you have in your account. So as you can see, it's totaling my expenses that I've entered, all of them for the Amazon Service Pro. I can filter this provider statement by date range, the service pro, the category, and the group. Next, we'll show another way to record expenses. If you have a maintenance request that required some expense to be purchased, you can also add that expense to the maintenance request so that they're all tied together. As you can see here, if we open one of these renovation tickets, if we scroll down to the bottom of that maintenance request, there's a money in and a money out button. So to add this transaction, I clicked money out and I filled out this expense that would then be attached to the maintenance request. As you can see here, the expense will be listed on the maintenance request. And if I click on that expense, I can see I put my tag on the expense. It's attached to the service pro that it goes to. And then I could also attach an invoice to that invoice in TenantCloud. Next, let's go over some reports that would be good to take a look at when you're trying to figure out your expenses totals. So first we'll go over to reports on the left-hand menu. And for our landlords that own and manage the properties, 3 good reports for you to look at would be the property statement, the property expenses, and the general expenses. So if we take a look at the property statement, this will show you all of the money in to the property and then all the money that went out. You can filter this by date, property and units, the owner, the lease status, or the category and subcategory. You can also configure these columns to add or remove any columns, and you can also drag and drop them to reorder them. Down at the bottom, you will see a grand total for the money in and the money out. The second report for our landlords who own and manage is going to be the property expenses. This will also show you a list of all of your expenses where you can do it in accrual or cash. As you can see, you can include details, the category, what service pro they were paid to, and it is broken down by property. Down at the bottom, you will also get a grand total. On this property expenses report, you can filter by date, property, owner, category, the accounting type you're able to control, and then you can also filter by group. Another report to see the expenses would be your general expenses. Your general expenses are going to be any expenses that are tied to your business but not your properties. So as you can see here, I have some consulting charges and some office supplies. This can be filtered by date. You can change the accounting type between cash or accrual. You can also filter by subcategory and group. For our property management companies and our property managers, there's 3 other reports that you can also take a look at. First, we'll take a look at the operating statement. This will break down the income versus expense for each property and give you the totals and the net cash flow. You can filter this by date, lease status, property and units, owner, and you can change that accounting type. This will also show you your owner contributions as well as your management fees and your owner distributions. The second report that our property managers can also take a look at would be the profit and loss statement. And this will be calculating the net cash flow for your business. So all of your management fees will be listed here if you also collect late fees or application fees. any general income, and then it will also have your general expenses, which would be tied to your business and not a specific property. The third report that our property managers will want to take a look at would be the owner statement. And this will show the money in versus the money out for the property, as well as the owner's balance. With these expenses, when you are a property manager or a property management company, there are two ways that you can recoup these expenses. If you have the net distribution set up to automatically invoice through TenantCloud, the system will calculate the rent minus any of those expenses for that month and your management fees and give you that total that would then need to be sent to the owner or that the owner would owe you. If you would like to immediately recoup those expense charges, you can also ask for an owner contribution to balance that expense out. To ask for an owner contribution, you would go to accounting on the left-hand side, transactions, money in, and then owner contribution. And that allows the owner to send you those funds to make up for that expense that you paid. And that is recording, organizing, reporting, and recouping your expenses in TenantCloud. We hope this video gives you a good overview of how you can include your expenses in all of your accounting in TenantCloud. Thank you for joining today.